So, hello there. Hello. I think we're live. Hello, folks. If somebody out there can let me know. I'm just turning that up a bit. I don't know why, but it might help. Okay, so how are we today? It's dark. It is dark here in the UK. It's 3:30 and it officially is miserable. Good to see that 4 people have left already. JF, good to see you. Hey, how are you? How are things in Canada over there, eh? Julie, hello, Julie. Good to see you. Oh, I like the bee. It's good. If only. Pretty good. Good to hear it. So, we're going to be talking about spirits and our minds, all the usual sort of stuff that we discuss here on our Monday Moments. David, hello. All good in Bath. Excellent. Hopefully you're not in the bath. Sahar, hello there. Nice to see you. Lawrence, good to see you. Stevie, hey. And Kimberly, good to see you too. Well done. Fantastic. Excellent. Oh, suddenly we're up to 15 of you joining us. Ellen, nice to see you. It's really lovely. Okay, so this is the place where we have our meandering chit-chat. Those of you that are regular will be completely aware of how the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour goes. I'm very happy to take questions anytime you want to put them in there. We'll either take them straight away or we'll move on and do whatever, come back to them, hopefully. For those of you that aren't watching this on live, they're watching it on playback, then there will be an edited version. I'm doing a playlist of the edited highlights. Scarily enough, as I said to somebody the other day, we've got roughly a 60-minute program, and actually we end up with about 10 minutes of nuggets, which I edit down. But if for those people that don't want to put up with the meandering chit chat and all the hellos, like, hello, Nancy, how are you? Good. Then hit the playlist of the edited highlights, and there's loads of stuff in there that you'll kind of learn from and appreciate it. Nathan, yes, good. I will be calling you Keith throughout this, I expect. And if it's all right with you, Nathan, just let me know on this. But I was going to touch on the conversation that you and I had on Facebook, if that's all right. Just let me know. If it isn't, not a problem at all. But just give me a yes if that's okay. Rick, hello there. Nice to see you. So, various things. Now, I don't know. We're coming up to the end of the year, aren't we? You know, look at this. How many weeks? 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks to go before the holiday. It's a mad time of year. I'm thinking at the moment, and I will let you know. That's great, Nathan. Thanks. I'm thinking at the moment that this may well possibly be the last Monday Moments, the last live Q&A before the holiday, because there's just so much going on and things need to be done. I know, don't all cry at once. Well, look, I'm going to be back. Lady K, good to see you. Always distinctive, to say the least. So we'll see how this goes, and we'll see how my week goes, and we'll see how things pile up or not, and how much I can get through. There's loads of exciting stuff coming up that you know, for next year is going to be brilliant. And what we're touching on as one of the things, let's just run through this and see where we're going today, because we're going to be talking about transient spirits. Lawrence raised the question last time about transient spirits and why is it that he feels that like his house is a bus stop for spirits. So we'll talk about that. I want to talk a little bit about the fear in connection, in making our connection to the subtle realms and to spirit. When we start to explore the personalities that are there, not only in terms of spirits, as Lawrence describes them as transient spirits, but also when we're talking about to spirit of place. I encourage you to try to make contact with spirit of place. And sometimes I may take it for granted that you're completely happy and getting across that. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And David, when David joins us a little bit later, probably, David wanted us to reflect a little bit on the changing energies and maybe what we feel about next year, 2020. So those are the things that we're primarily going to focus on. Coming back a little bit, when I say in the past, when oh, thanks, Sahar. Dear. Yeah, I mean, people do comment that the fact that they find it hilarious when I get completely sidetracked and lose my way completely. So maybe we'll do a Christmas tape. Depends on the time. Right. When I've said in the past, it's like I took a break in the summer, and I've said, we're pausing Monday moments, but we'll be back. I'll be back. I don't know why I keep using the royal we in this today, but anyway, what happens is everybody assumes I'm completely away. I've gone off. In fact, the reason is I need to spend time, in the office doing other stuff. So don't please abandon the channel. Just keep an eye out for uploads. And in fact, one of the things that I want to do is to get back to doing more regular uploads of the pre-recorded stuff as well. We'll still do this, but it might be in a slightly different format. It might not be every week. I don't know. It's difficult because it's easy for you guys if you know that I'm doing it at a regular time. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Billy, good to see you. Tammy, good to see you too. And Jenny, golly, good to see you. Look at this. So this is an example. This is a case in point. This is the third week in a row when I have been here at 3:30. And of course, for you guys, it's a lot easier to remember if you want to come along and join in. But if it's a regular thing, Tom, hello there. Nice to see you. That's great. Yeah, good here, Tom. Thanks. Hope you're well as well, mate. It's easier if I'm doing a regular time. Then obviously it's easy for you to. Joe, hello. Right. Nice of you to drop in. It's easy for you to remember and to tune in. So this is what we've got. We have 25 of you now, right? Okay. And so last time we had less than that. Time before that we had less than that. So it's difficult for me to know how best to serve you. Now, of course, as some of you are already thinking, well, if you gave us more warning and told us about it each week, you'd be here. And maybe that's the way it goes. Maybe that I will do regular mailing on the mailing list and blah, 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 all that sort of thing. Little Mrs. Hey, there you go. Cold in Oregon. Why is it cold in Oregon? Daphne, great. Good to see you too. The more the merrier. Yes, I know. It's just, let's see how it goes. We know how it goes. It meanders and becomes round to a circuitous route. Okay, so those of you that are in the UK, or those of you that might want to travel across to the UK, just be aware that I have popped up some details about next year's workshops. I'm only doing 2 of them next year, doing one in May and one in September. They're both about helping people really connect to their intuition. You really connect and work with the subtle energies of existence, work with the spirit guides. I've been a bit contrary. I've put the more advanced one in May. So that's going to be happening with a bit of luck at the end of May, 30th, 31st of May, that's up here in North Yorkshire, and in September, which is more about helping people really start on their path and really help them, the people that are a bit perhaps less advanced. That's in September, and that will be the 19th, 20th September. Golly. Okay, so rain, little miss issues. It's rain everywhere, I think. Good. Well, that's good, Lady K. Excellent. Talking early in, but yeah, I can't remember where you are, Billy. Are you in the UK, Billy? Ireland or something? I can't remember. Is resistance suitable fighting it a sign of subtle energy affecting a person? I'm really feeling I'm resisting, which is keeping me tired. Well, okay. Oh, that's nice, Joe. Good to know. UK down south. Oh, you're down south. How funny. I didn't think you were down there, Billy. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, so you'll be well dark by now. Tom. Okay, so let's just kick off with that. Is resistance... yeah, I mean, resistance is common in everybody as we walk down this path. Now, I know your circumstance, because obviously we've been emailing. So what we have typically is a case where ego, which is the human essence of the person, is fighting the, excuse my nails, by the way, I've been digging in the garden all weekend and I haven't got around to cleaning them. So the human essence, in fact, I can't do that. The human essence, ego, and the spiritual aspect of the person, okay? And as you develop on your path, and I know that this is what you're looking into the subtle energies and really trying hard and really working with the subtle energies, the energies of spirit. What happens is that ego that aspect of us that is the human part, really fights, really puts up a fight. And that is what the friction is. That is what the resistance is. It's coming from ego. It's not about being egotistical. It's about the ego not wanting change to occur because it is frightened. It is scared of what the change will, what will it mean for the ego self and what will become of it. And the ego is fueled by the independent nature of the human being and the separate aspect of our reality, whereas spirit is completely the opposite. Spirit is all encompassing. It comes from that point of view that it knows that it provides the information of unity. It understands that it is connected to everything, and everything will always be in the right place at the right time in all of those essences. And exactly what Lady K's really working with there is synchronicities are really popping, as she says. Things are really working. And when you're in that flow, that's when the resistance actually becomes minimized and the flow maximized, so that you're more in your spirit energy and you're more in that ability to see, to recognize synchronicities, to take the appropriate action. So the friction that is occurring, the friction that occurs between ego and the spirit self, is not something to be decried or to be ashamed of, or to be appalled at or brought down by. It is merely a part of the process that we all go through. I mean, I used to know that I was in for a good workshop when I was doing self-development work and attending people's workshops, because I would be the grumpiest person you'd ever meet on the morning of the workshop before going out and going to that workshop. And the reason was because my ego was going, what the heck are you doing? Why are you going to this? What are you doing with this? What on earth could this do for you? Don't go to this work, as it would really fight. So in the end, I just took it that if I wasn't grumpy, then it wasn't going to be a terribly good workshop. That actually, to be honest, only happened about once. Most of the time, they were brilliant workshops. And so therefore I was quite a grumpy person every morning in those cases. So Alison, what? Okay, Summer, hello there. Discombobulated indeed. So Tom, hopefully that's helped you with that a little bit, about that feeling. Don't fight it, You're going to always dive into things big time. You're always going to be wanting to get it right. You're always going to want to understand, and I'm talking about you specifically, are always going to be really, you're going to go into a time of fixation, if you like, because that's the nature of who you are. It's not a bad thing, it's just who you are. So just allow it and just be easy on yourself. Don't rush what you're trying to do, because what you're trying to do is going to take a little bit of time, and it's quite a major process, but that's okay, because you're stepping forward and you're determined, and I can see that you will, I'm sure, get to exactly where you want to be. Hello, John McElroy, good to see you. Okay, so lovely, right. So what was the first one? Lawrence. I didn't talk about this last time. Lawrence had a question about transitory spirits. Now, in fact, at the beginning of November, Lawrence asked this, and he said, Tim, would you discuss transit spirits, as he calls them? I've experienced these so many times, never negative, always positive, but they seem to pass through. And when you discussed black shadows in a previous Monday Moments Live, it reminded him of his experience with these transit spirits. Sometimes I feel as if there is a bus stop at my home, says Lawrence. So sometimes, Lawrence, you see, as far as I remember, Lawrence does a lot of work with Reiki, does a lot of distance healing. Is a very sensitive guy. And what this is about, and what I said in direct response to Lawrence, just in reply to that comment on the channel, was right, there's an answer that might blow your mind a little bit, or it might just make you go and sit in the corner. So as usual, this is the sort of thing that we'll come at from two different perspectives, and the two different perspectives being, again, the human perspective. It's not ego and spirit, but it's the human perspective, the vocabulary that we have to use in order to communicate concepts and ideas about our existence in this reality as human beings. And then there's the other perspective, which we'll look at, which is more about the kind of the big mind-blowing sciencey stuff, the kind of spiritual aspect of everything, of the multiverse, if you want to call it that, of that process, that point of awareness. Now I know, yeah, I think most of, anyway, it doesn't matter. Some people kind of glaze over when we start to talk about some of this stuff. Other people find it really fascinating. I know JF really likes the kind of physicsy stuff as well as the spiritual stuff. So, transit spirits, right. What Jane, my guardian in energy, the guardian energy of the house that we moved into all those years ago, what she said, one of the really early things that she said was, because she was describing herself as the guardian in charge of helping spirits move along these earth energy lines. We had 2 earth energy lines crossing in the back of our house in a really dark place, dark as in heavy and really quite oppressive space. And what Jane said to us really early on was, not only did she describe herself as kind of like doing traffic duty, sort of helping spirits come through the lines. So she was there almost sort of like, like the old-fashioned policeman directing traffic, but she was doing that to spirits. So spirits using earth energy lines. Now I know that we have things called spirit lines, which are specifically, kind of like main highways of spirits traveling around. But also they use earth energy lines. And look, again, this comes back round to the fact that earth energy as a label is not adequate to describe it. So let's not worry about that specific label. But if you imagine the idea that if we had an earth energy line going across here, literally coming across my desk in front of the camera here, then you would have, let's do a small version. You'd have spirit after spirit after spirit after spirit after spirit, kind of queuing in a line coming along here. Potential spirit, right? Potential is the important word, the potential of spirit. Because what we're really dealing with when we look at it from the kind of consciousness, mind-blowing side of things, is our awareness interacting with the seemingly external information field. Well, it is an external information field, it's not part, Okay, so let me backtrack in that typical Monday Moments way. the mind, our mind, what we perceive to be our mind isn't in here, isn't in this grey mass. Part of it is, but most of it is out here anyway. We live in our mind, but our mind is a part of the massive universal mind. And this is a way that, I say the consciousness stuff, because scientists are increasingly starting to look at the intelligent ether, as they call it, as being the universal mind. Now, it's not mainstream science, but they are increasingly looking at it like this because they have to, in order to understand what science calls the hard problem, which is the problem of consciousness. Traditionally, the problem of consciousness, what is consciousness, has been looked at from the human independent particle type point of view, looking for consciousness in the skull, in the mechanism of the brain, in the process, in the grey matter. That's where science has been looking for it. Now they're realizing they can't look at it from that point of view. They have to look at it from the other side, from effectively from the 0 point field side, quantum field of existence that we're all a part of. That quantum field of existence goes right through us. We're just a shape within it. We're a formed atomic structure within the bigger field. So, well, it could be Truth Seeker 85. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't really know the term of reincarnation tunneling or tunnel like that, but it sounds like that. Interesting. We'll come back to reincarnation in a sec. So, as as beings that are points of awareness within this universal mind, then we can perceive other awarenesses in different vibratory levels within that 0 point field. The 0 point field is not like a flat surface, two-dimensional surface. I can hear a scientist friend of mine who's immediately saying, well, it could be. But actually, let's just consider it as not being flat. It is multi-vibrational. There are different layers that one can access. This is the whole point. When we start to work with our heart and our vibration combined with the logical grey matter, then we start to access this field of possibility at a slightly different vibration. That's the whole point. If you try to access it from a place of anger or fear, then you're accessing at a different point than you are if you access it from a point of love, right? We know this, okay? We fundamentally know this. So, Daphne, the live will always be on here as a full 45 minutes to an hour anyway, so there'll be both. You can pick and choose. Those people that want the long version, it's there. So when Lawrence is experiencing these spirits, he is dipping into the 0 point field. He's tuning in. He's going into that meditative state very quickly because he's used to doing it. And that's what mediums do. They drop into that brainwave pattern, the mixture of brainwaves that enable a good connection with this modem, because this is effectively what this is: the grey matter in the head and the connecting. Can't remember the word for it, but the connections in the brain connects in to the 0 point field in that certain pattern of frequencies. Lawrence is doing that, and what he's seeing, because he expects to now, is finding these spirits, and they'll be transitory. They are always flowing through. In one respect, this is again looking at it from our human perspective as a physical being looking into a line of earth energy, whereas in fact there is no actual point of reference. If you go from the spirit's point of view, then time doesn't exist, so there's simply being. There's an awareness. We are in space-time, so there's a movement. So we're looking at it from Lawrence's point of view. So what probably happened there is that Lawrence had an experience where he was seeing spirits, and therefore that's fine because that's in his belief system, and therefore wherever he goes, he would be able to pick these up. They may be more dominant, seemingly, in his house, and that can be the case. Is that, as I said, earth energy lines are used by spirit for progress, for transitioning from our perspective. Not necessarily, if you were a spirit, you wouldn't necessarily see it as going along a channel like that. We're talking about information, so it does get like a mind. This is a real mind F in order to try and get this across, right? Because we're looking at different viewpoints all the time, looking at different perspectives. We are purely a point of awareness, as we said before. So, okay, let me just catch up because I know that there's a whole load of stuff going on here on the chat. I understand that as we are possibly more connected, we think we are with the 0 point field, since our mind is already out there, we just need to be mindful and how to direct this connection. Yes, because in fact we are constantly connected to it. It's just that our point of awareness is shifting, and we exist most of the time in this physical world actually in a state of sleep almost. We just go through life on habit most of the time, most of us, and therefore when we break into the mindful state of being, then we're interrupting that, and we're actually having more opportunity to access intentionally the 0 point field. Truth seeker, reincarnation, type of physical energetic tunnel created by ancients to allow spirits goes to pass the other side. Okay, yep, okay. So yeah, so portals, again, you see, so portals and vortices and these sort of things, this is very much tied in with earth energy lines in themselves, because actually the earth energy line, if you douse it in detail, what you'll actually find is there's a string of vortices anyway. We know that because we are vortices. Everything is just spin energy. So yeah, I get what you're saying, Truth Seeker. So what we're actually talking about is a very similar thing, but we're just using slightly different labels, which is very common in metaphysical discussions. So that's great. I mean, you're there. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying we're sharing the same thing, but slightly different labels. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Cool. Great. Excellent. So. And I mean, you see, this is another thing. Just coming off Lawrence's question for a second, in that meandering way that we do, the labels that we use in the work that we do are some of them are incredibly emotive, and we come on to this again in a bit later on when we start to talk about fear, because okay, let's talk about it now. We're here, aren't we? Let's talk about it now. The labels. If we start to talk about portals and doorways and dimensions of other space and living entities, entity itself is can be quite a scary word for some people. You think about Hollywood again, they had a movie called The Entity, which is quite a scary thing way back in the 80s. Sorry, let's just quickly look at Ellen's. Yeah. So again, Ellen, this is partly because you're expecting to see the faces in the walls, and what you do with that interaction is entirely up to you. So again, all of this is reflecting the individual nature of each individual person's reality, and I can't stress this enough. We always talk about this, and the reason we always talk about it is because it is absolutely essential. What we're talking about is the perspective, the viewpoint of the individual point of awareness. What I'm doing is sharing my individual viewpoint of individual awareness. Lawrence, so my experience of what Lawrence sees as transitory spirits, for example, won't necessarily be the same as Lawrence's, right? We understand that. Now, when we talk about Ellen seeing, because Ellen sees a lot of faces in the wall behind me, so there's a lot of what you scientists or psychologists would call anthropomorphizing the patterns. And so therefore it's same as Lady K when she does scrying. It's exactly the same process when you're doing a process of tuning into your subtle intuition, to your subtle self and the energies that surround you. It is up to you what you make of the individual information you pull through and the way that you interpret it. And so again, this is an example of the individual aspect of the one consciousness point. In that case, the consciousness point being called Ellen, or in the other case being called Lady K. Okay, hello, Eileen. Come back to that in a sec. So when we use words like portals, doorways into other dimensions, this is what I was saying, entity, possession, spirits, even for some people, that have not been brought up in a family or even had an experience of being open in the sense of being a highly sensitive person and encountering things. Even the word or the concept that there could be life after death and that there could be spirit people in the environment is enough to scare the bejesus out of them. So this is important because what I was talking about with Nathan during the week, good point, JF, we'll come back to that. What I was talking to Nathan about during the week was about how, broadly speaking, about how his interpretation of elemental activity was beginning to get a little bit tinged with some fear. Okay, now it's not like he was fearful of elementals, but there was an element of fear creeping in, because what he was finding was that he was experiencing things in his direct environment, that he wasn't overly comfortable with. And being blunt, they were freaking out his son. Now, that could be elemental activity. It could be. It could be. And in nothing that I say am I dissing elementals, because actually I completely, in my belief system, believe in them. I believe in the little folk, and you get a feeling for them. My belief system says that elementals, when I encounter them, are actually lovely. They're really, really friendly. They are really helpful. They're incredibly helpful. However, something in Nathan's belief system, probably, something that's happened to the ego part of self long time ago, has given him a tiny aspect that says, oh, hang on, I'm not so sure I like this. And therefore, what that's doing is meaning that he's interacting with the 0 point field, with the field of possibility in which experience exists as potential, on a slightly different level to perhaps one that he could be interacting it with, because he is coming from a tinge, we just say tinge of fear. And that's not a great place to go from. What you've got to be doing is going in, when you're working with any of this energy, from as high a vibration, as high a best place as possible. And you literally can jump from one connection to another. It's not like a digital process. It's an analog. So you go up the wave as you settle and relax. You will literally be interacting with the 0 point field on a slightly different vibration. So I'm saying this because that's what my guide told me and illustrated very clearly on several occasions. Now, I know the way that this fear aspect can really start to get sort of build on a cycle, because I've been there years ago. I've been there when we were first introduced to Jane, and we were trying to get used to this idea of having a ghost type person, a spirit. Even if she was a guardian energy, she was still a spirit in the house. It didn't come easily. I wasn't used to interacting with spiritual entities at all. So there were evenings where I would get myself quite spooked. And I'm supposed to be a bloke. I am a bloke, clearly, but you know what I mean. I'm supposed to be, I don't get scared of anything. But that's my stereotype of a man. What a ridiculous thing to say. So what I'm saying is I got scared. And a lot of the scariness that I was doing was I was self-creating, self-perpetuating, because that once you get that loop, everything that happens, if you're not really tuned in, every little noise, every little nuance that you don't quite understand what is that, it gets attributed to the spirit, and then your mind races off into all sorts of avenues of, well, what if? And of course the what ifs don't ever occur, because most of the time most of the time those in spirit are not evil, quote unquote. Right, where are we going with this? What I'm trying to get you to really understand is the importance of being in control of your own emotional input, so that your world, your reality, your experience gives you the best possible comeback. What we said to Nathan in that time about that fear aspect, because he was getting caught up in, well, what if something else more intimidating comes through on this space? I just said to him, well, just stop, just tune out, just put it all down, just ignore everything in that world for a few days, for a week, for as long as it takes for you to just kind of come back to earth. Look at everything from a grounded point of view, from a common sense point of view, from a practical point of view. If there's a noise in the kitchen and you're sitting in the living room, go and look and see what it was, and you'll probably find it's just the dishwasher making a noise or something like that. Look at the common sense boring things first. Kimberly knows that I always talk about look at the boring things first, because to eliminate the boring, everyday, common physical world means that you can then be sure of what you're doing in the spirit energy, in the subtle realms. Okay? It's not about saying, no, subtle realms is nonsense. It's about saying, right, that's the physical world. Now, the issue comes from when we go back to earlier on and we think about the mind, the universal mind. Because if we can create anything, then we can create anything. So you have to ask yourself all the time, really, and truthfully, if you're going to ask yourself this, you have to ask yourself truthfully, what do you want to experience? And that's really tough. And I often say to you guys, to go off and do this stuff, and see you later. And I kind of assume that you will go off and think about your relationship to everything and to the subtle realms, because that's so often what I don't say is I don't say go off and think about it, go off and look at how your world is and what is it showing you. Go and do it as an exercise. You know, what is it that really gets your goat? What is it that, or in a nice way, what is it that really gives you pleasure in your world, in what you experience? And look at and think about everything that you have that is individual. Because not only is this a really useful exercise in terms of relating to the 0 point field, but it really also does give you the ammunition, if you like, the things to gather in your own mind that are really good about what you've got, even if you feel crap, even if you think your life is a bit down in the dumps or you're really off where you want to be. It gives you the ammunition when you think about it and gather your thoughts about what is good in your life. It gives you the points and it builds you the ladder to move on to exactly where you should be at that time. So yeah, you had the footsteps and everything. Yeah. So yes, exactly, Billy. That's exactly what I'm getting at. That's why I really, really love that quote at the very end of Being There, the movie with Peter Sellers. Life is a state of mind. Virtually the last thing in the film, and that is, as far as I'm concerned, a terrific mantra to kind of grasp wholeheartedly and to live by, because it's your state of mind. Absolutely your state of mind. Doesn't stop us dropping into those points where we go down in the doldrums and we think, what's it all about? What's the point? Why is this happening? Blah, de, blah. But what we're trying to do here is to illustrate how we actually do have a responsibility for ourselves to be very aware of all this stuff. Right, meandering like mad here, guys, aren't we? But there is a thread, isn't there? So can we just, I think you're all there, just let me just, yeah, you're all over there. It's okay, just wanted to chat up, don't want to miss out. Yeah, so this individuality, right, this is really interesting because you know, Merthen, my guide, was years ago telling me how important this individual perspective was or is. And you know, it's really doing this work and mentoring very, very different people in the house healing work and in working with subtle energies, very different people, that I can see how incredibly different one person's reality can be from another person's. And in fact, Nathan is a really interesting example. We're not mentoring, but what is really interesting is that sorry, I just caught Lawrence's comment. What is really interesting is that Nathan obviously has the ability, he has the energy input into his reality that allows footsteps to be heard of stuff. Not everybody has that. Okay, so the issue for Nathan will be to actually settle into this experience eventually, in due time and in a good, safe, grounded way, because what we don't want to do is for anybody that watches this sort of stuff to rush into this in that state of euphoria, and then we get into the sort of we start to lose our grip on reality, and that is really, really bad place to be. We don't want that. We've got to be as solid and as human in our interaction with the subtle energies as we possibly can be for each individual person, and it will vary. Okay, so hopefully I'm not just spouting stuff here. Hopefully it's making sense. If somebody could, I think JF had a comment about aliens. Where was that? Because this is, so yeah, so JF way back here. So if I believe in aliens, I'll perceive alien entities, but if I believe in angels, that's what I'll perceive. More or less, that's how I would say it. But having said that, when you perceive both, you then will realize that actually they've got a different feeling. So alien entities feel they feel different to angels in the same way as angels feel different to elementals, in the same way as a spirit of a person, disincarnate spirit, will feel different to any of the above. The angelic energy and the archangel energy, these sort of energies are incredibly powerful, incredibly loving, and incredibly understanding. Your spirit guide is going to feel different to every aspect of that as well. It's not necessarily a feeling, JF, just to answer your question specifically, it's not necessarily a feeling in your physical self. It's a feeling, but a knowing as well. And I know that gets really kind of tenuous, but this is all part of your perceptive abilities. What we always try to do when we're learning to communicate with spirit and to be a part of this subtle energy is to be as aware of how things feel, because the feeling for a human being is the most grounded and functional position to come from. So a position of belief is far easier if we can feel something within our body or extended auric field, for example. If we go purely with what we see in our mind's eye, now obviously some people see things out here superimposed in reality, or they see perhaps things actually as though they are real, and for them that's the way they're interpreting that information field, and that's absolutely fine and appropriate. But also if they're seeing, the chances are that there are other sensory input going on as well at the same time. Even if they're synesthetic, in other words, their senses are, according to mainstream medicine, crossing, so they might get smells for colors, for example, or whatever, that sort of thing. So all, yeah, anyway, what is normally audible is not necessarily audible, or it comes across as a color with the audio, things like this. So synesthesists are typically very, very sensitive people, and part of the reason is because they're seeing the world differently. So it's a place to start from, JF. It's about continuing to do the exercises, continuing to be aware of how you process information and how you feel, and even doing things like lucid dreaming. So dreaming while, becoming aware that you're dreaming while you're dreaming is a good practice at communicating with yourself, understanding self and the way that you process information, because that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to understand in the first instance how you process information. Now this brings us round to are they more than filters of understanding for each person? Are they more than filters? Well, I think what you mean is, are they real? And so therefore the question is, what is real? But at the same time, everything in the physical world is real, with a caveat. When I was trying to get my head around this originally, and Jane, the Guardian, was trying to help me with this. I mean, it's a bit weird to try to talk about reality in relation to a non-physical being, but the first thing she said when I realized that, okay, what is meant by the spiritual truth, that everything is an illusion, right? That's what I was trying to get my head around, was this idea that everything is an illusion. But immediately, as soon as I basically said, "Oh, so everything's illusory," she said, "No, it's real." But it's an illusion. Yes, but it's real. Okay, how does that work? Well, that's what you then got to kind of filter out for yourself. So if you're experiencing an ET, an alien entity, then it comes back round to, how do you want to sorry, okay, how do you, what, okay, let me, again, I have got distracted, and the dog's barking here as well. JF, come on, let me come back to your point. ET, let's use ET as an example. It's always about, if you've got information coming into you and you say, well, okay, so this appears to be an ET. So on the assumption that you're not fearful, right? Because we don't want to go there. If you're fearful, then you just cut everything off and you go take a week's holiday and all that stuff. But seriously, you know what I mean. But let's say that we're interacting with an energy that is presenting itself as ET. So it's up to you whether you actually interact with it, because a lot of the time ET energies don't even acknowledge our presence. They can be around and not acknowledge. Sometimes they will acknowledge, they'll just look, or sometimes they'll come up to us and, you know, all sorts of things. But we don't, the individual, the point is that it's up to the individual to determine in that moment how they want to respond to that energy. If you are satisfied that the energy of this ET is friendly, let's be blunt about all this, then you take that next step, you go forward and you say, well, okay, let's try to talk to it. That's fine. You'll know at that point, is it friendly still? Right. If it isn't, cutting it out. You've always got control over your perception of reality, because you are the one that is experiencing that moment. And also, you are a part of the universal mind. And we'll use the G word, God is a part of this process. You're feeding back information all the time to the ultimate creator, to God. Your experience depends to a large extent on everybody else's experience and what God is allowing into your experience. And spirit, God, consciousness, the management, the universe doesn't allow anything into your experience that you can't cope with. There is no point whatsoever in the universe allowing energy in that explodes that awareness point. There are lessons to be learned from all interactions. Now, you're going to say, well, what about people that commit suicide? Or what about people that get murdered, or people war? How are we go into that? Well, that's another big topic. But perception of awareness, JF, you're safe, but you need to take the steps. Each one, do it safely. I have to sidestep the big issue because we'll be here all day. Okay, so okay. I don't know, Jay, if I may have just left you hanging there, or I may have left everybody hanging. I'm not sure. I've sort of disappeared into my own thinking process. So we've certainly covered Lawrence's things. Let's we've got about 10 minutes or so. So I want to cover, just let me look at these. We've got David, let's look at 2020. And I also want to give you some, we've covered Nathan, that's great. So I want to give you some things to think about here, guys. Especially if I'm not reappearing for a few weeks. And I don't know, I can't say for sure whether I'll be here next week or not. I will let you know. David Wood, the world of David Wood, fantasy and folklore art. And he is a terrific artist, so do check out his channel. I'll say that again, world of David Wood, fantasy and folklore art. His point was, question for next time. I'm not looking for predictions or anything. I feel in heading towards 2020, there's an energy shift. 2020, there's almost a new energy coming forward. For me personally, I feel it's going to be a good year after well over 5 years of dealing with extremely challenging things. Have you any thoughts on the new year? And this is something that Tammy also wanted to go along with. I'm still here, I think. So 2020, right. In looking at 2020 and thinking about next year, bearing in mind that time doesn't exist, think back to everything that we've covered in the last 50 minutes or so. And it's all about your relationship to everything in the seeming external world. So it's all about you as a co-creator moving forward in time, because that's where we're based, and working with what you are shown. Now, David is already approaching 2020 with a positive outlook. And if we step back and look at it from the human perspective, because otherwise I'm going to be continually looking at it from the spiritual perspective, let's look at it from the human perspective. Everything that we know about being a human being, we look at the world. Our perception is that the world is going to hell in a handcart or in an extinction event. Well, we may well be in an extinction event, but we may not be. And what I would urge everybody to do in 2020, this isn't quite the way I thought it was going to go, but what I'm urging everybody to do in 2020 is to actually be very, 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 very mindful of everything that you look at online. And you're going to go, oh, what's he going on about now? And why is this depressing? It's not depressing. It's not depressing at all. And, you know, I think that the main reason why there are so many people waking up spiritually and having spiritual attacks, but just generally becoming more aware, is because this is what is required as we move into a stage of the human evolution that is fighting the old AI. It is fighting, it's also fighting in a metaphorical sense, ego as a collective and the spiritual fighting the collective. So collective spiritual, collective ego, right, fighting together, coming back to Tom's point right at the start. Now, the thing is, I want to just touch on a couple of points from New Scientist magazine. Now, on the proviso that we can't necessarily take anything that is written down or in the media, certainly not on social media, as being a reliable platform or a reliable observation anymore, unfortunately, or ever, could we ever, I don't know. But these things, this is what this article is saying. The first one is talking about the way that actually the specific way that your feeds on all your social media can influence you without you realizing it, unless you are incredibly mindful and are educated to understand the ability of those that are providing the information on the social media channel to target exactly what you want to see or may not want to see. Now, this article here is by a journalist. It's her view. It's a column, and it's talking about it starts off talking about the way that political parties can use social media to manipulate, because they have such a depth of knowledge about individuals that they can literally, you know, this is not new, they can literally target individuals with very specific, persuasive arguments, adverts, and even social media articles to influence their thinking. And just bear with me on this. This is not depressing. This is actually, I'm trying to bring to your awareness information that you need to be mindful of, so that we bring our power to bear in the choices that we make. Bearing in mind, we talked earlier on about going through life in a sort of semi-hypnotic state or half asleep. So there are targeted political ads on social media platforms. Let's just get onto this. There was a stunt that, let's just read this for you. A US presidential candidate, Elizabeth Warren, decided to take Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg to task. Her campaign brought Facebook ads, so they bought Facebook ads that said, breaking news, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook just endorsed Donald Trump for re-election. So she'd created fake news. So just to make a point that Facebook would literally run anything and run any lie from a politician as an advert which is what they did. They ran that campaign. She was doing it as an example. Responding to Warren's stunt at congressional hearing, Zuckerberg said Facebook has no plans to fact check political adverts because that would be censorship, right? He added, I just think that in a democracy, people should be able to see for themselves what politicians are saying. Yeah, that sounds great. And as she says, this journalist says, that sounds pretty reasonable until you get to the bit about people seeing for themselves, because that is exactly what Facebook doesn't allow. Most people will never see the vast majority of political ads on the social media platform. Facebook gathers a tremendous amount of data and uses it to micro-target marketing tools, which in this instance particularly offer political campaigns a chance to deliver. So they can deliver ads to audiences based on personality traits and biases. That's your personality traits and biases, my personality trait and biases. I can be targeted, and it allows political lies on Facebook to reach them, reach the people most likely to fall for them. That's the degree. I'm just saying this as an example of be mindful of where your information comes from. And in terms of spirituality, in terms of what we talk about on this channel, this is why it's important to judge and to live your life primarily by what is immediately coming to you through your 5 senses or your 6 senses. The world of the media, social media included, and of course this includes YouTube. This is why you have to make up your own mind whether I'm talking complete nonsense or whether I've got something that you resonate with. YouTube is exactly the same as all of this stuff. So this is a way for me to get my channel shut down as well if I'm not careful. But your decision and your power is in about processing the information that comes to you, whether it be from media or whether it be directly from your interpersonal relationships and your exchanges with other people, other aspects of the field. Doing so mindfully. So the potential for 2020 is the same as the potential for any future. It is exactly what you want it to be, but just be careful how you tread. And the other thing, just to take this one stage further and to say and to illustrate how all of this can just go in a certain direction, is that in another article in the same edition of New Scientist, a different journalist is writing about the fact that companies are using technology developed by blah, blah, blah to insert flat posters on buildings, walls, and buses in already filmed scenes, and to even add 3-dimensional objects. It has the potential to make advertising, so we're now talking about advertising specifically, more targeted and ubiquitous than ever before, virtually impossible to avoid. And what they're talking about is artificial intelligence that will feed you a feed on Netflix, for example. I'm not saying Netflix is doing it. There are a million other video on demand services out there. But because of the nature of the individual feed that is coming into your life through these services, the advertisers can recolor a scene or recolor a background. You could have an advert in there. Jenny might see an advert in there for one particular product. Tammy would see an advert in there for a different product. JF would see an advert for another product. That in that picture frame, right, on the wall behind me. And the AI would make it seamless. And your assumption is that you're seeing exactly the same as everybody else, but you're not. And in life, it's exactly the same. Your perception of reality is unique to you. So when we look at 2020, we look into the future, we step into the future, and we welcome the future. Let's not do so with all of the bad shit that's gone before that we feel we are still attached to, or that we feel the world is going down the drain, because it isn't. There will be massive changes. This is a warning. This is direct from Spirit. This is direct from my guide. There will be massive changes. 2021 is not going to be easy. 2020 and 2021 are not going to be. That's interesting, because he said 2021, didn't he? They're not going to be easy years for everybody. And the way to survive, I don't mean survivalist. There's no issue about society collapse. But the way to survive your own mental stability is to do exactly what we've been talking about and other channels talk about. It's that mindful aspect of you that is your power. It is the mindful aspect of you that is your power. It really truly is. It's that magical essence, that childlike essence that we all forget about when we grow up, when we become adults and we get burdened with the responsibilities of so much stuff. And there is a childlike quality in communicating with the essences that are also there for our help and for our aid and for our assistance, and those loving energies. Because so many of us on the planet are sliding down the helter-skelter that doesn't go towards love and affection. It goes the other way. And that's not a place that any of you 33 people watching now need even pay any attention to, apart from to help others around you that are susceptible and falling into that slide. And it really is just the word, just that one word. There is an element of the social structure. We know that other people that will promote the social structures that want the chaotic environment, and it's not necessary. Well, indeed, your purpose is, don't get too hung up on feeling like you're running out of time or that you have a destiny, because in fact, you are living your destiny. You are being your destiny. You are, by simply being here, by simply being present. You're learning mindfulness because that is what you are supposed to be doing. That is what they want for you. That is what your divine connection is giving you. That is part of your current life. You actually don't need to be trying to identify where you want your life to go. You simply follow those things that come to you that give you pleasure in the fulfilling way that spiritual energy gives you pleasure. That's what you're doing on this channel. I'm not saying I am giving you that. I'm saying that you are looking for it and you are finding it in your lives. This is just one aspect of it. Yeah, exactly. Well done, Tom. That's great. Exactly. Yeah. The thing is, don't get too, little misses, don't get too frustrated by it. Allow them and give those that you're trying to help as much help and assistance as you can, but don't be frustrated if they don't respond and they don't appear to be responding, because your interaction with them may well be laying seeds and laying the groundwork for a change in the future that just isn't showing right now. And don't forget, I mean, as a house healer, this is something that took me some time to learn and to kind of really understand, is that I can't help everybody all the time. And so when I get clients that come to me and we get them to a certain stage of development and improvement, if I used to feel that if I couldn't get them to like 100%, then I failed. That's not the case, because you know, there's a change that needs to occur, a wave that is developing. That person will go on and find their last bit of change, and you know, in their own time and in their own ways. And yeah, we're not all we're all on a path of healing and discovery. Yeah, good. I'm glad you Kyle. I met Kyle. Just have to say, name dropping. I met Kyle Gray a couple of weeks ago at the Hay House event, and he's a really nice guy. He really is. You'd expect him to be, but he's just a really genuinely nice guy. I kind of went to pieces a bit when I met him, but you know, I think we're all entitled to do that. Ego. Come on, guys. Okay, so borrowing someone's coat and suddenly feeling sad, or being in the same space as someone who's feeling, yeah. Well, okay, so your sensitivities. So Nancy, you just need to be in control of those sensitivities, like we have talked about so often. about you need to be aware that you can just connect unintentionally, and you need to be mindfully connecting, so that when you use your sensitivities, you can use them in a positive way, and you can keep out the stuff that you don't want. You don't want to be affected by picking up somebody's coat and feeling their emotions, or being affected by somebody who has psychosis. Just control it with the chakra protection exercise and any other visualization, and even your guide. If you're already connected to your guide, Nancy, then they should be able to help you keep that all at bay. It's a real issue for sensitive people. They came to me, Kinney Chris, if that's a question to me. They came to me. That was the way that my life went. I moved into a house that had some really strange energies to it. We didn't expect to be doing that, and my life changed as a result. And so therefore it took me on this spiritual path. I just bumbled through life, and I continue to bumble and meander, which is why these are meandering chats. So is that Kinney Chris? I mean, if you're, you've probably got people around you already that actually are either themselves able to give you guidance, or are very close. Good, thanks, Eileen. To people that can give you that guidance. I mean, again, I was warning about Facebook and social media and all that stuff, but if you find somebody that you resonate with and you see their truth and you really feel it, then that's fine. The internet is an amazing thing. It's part of modern life. It's part of the 21st century that we live in from that human perspective, and therefore from spirit's perspective, it's there to be used, which is what we're doing. We're using it, aren't we? But we just need to use it with wisdom. We need to use it with care, and be aware that everything else, it's something new for the human species to interact like this. And it's not natural to our structures, our social structures, and it isn't natural to the individual. And this is why we get so much issue with loneliness, etc., etc., etc. So it's something that is being absorbed, coming back to that friction point, Tom, absorbed into the way that the human species is and will be. And, when the human species takes its step into the universe, physically into the universe, and we meet more and more, hopefully, intelligent entities, then we'll be a different species anyway. Okay. So I'm going to have to go now, guys. Yeah, that's right. With great powers come great responsibilities. Yeah, but this is what I love, is that the things like comics, actually, they have a lot of lovely nuggets in them because they're written by people, and those people have done the footwork. And so therefore you get great writers, and that sort of stuff comes through. Okay, that's good. Well, thank you, Tammy. I'm glad you enjoyed that. So, yeah, I think we covered most things. And Kung Fu Panda. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Stevie. Yeah, that's lovely. So I'm going to say goodbye. And I genuinely, it's been great. It has been quite full on. Thanks, Nathan. Let's see how it goes. And I suspect that it will be the new year when we next talk. And we can maybe reflect on some of this then. In the meantime, don't forget, I am here. I am going to be posting videos, and I dearly want your comments and I want your questions. So chuck them at the boards, chuck them at the comments, and if you get anybody else roped in, then bring them on board. Keith is Nathan. That's right, Tammy. Okay, cheers, Rick. Thanks. Take care now, everybody. See you soon. If I don't speak to you beforehand, I know it's a way off. Boykin, bye-bye, mate, bye. But have a lovely holiday. I won't say Christmas because, and I know we're not even in December, but this is my opportunity to thank you. And may God be with you for sure. Okay, take care, bye-bye.